Most people know that when you see one big block of text, that's one entire effect. So if I were to counter the enter the battlefield trigger from Massacre Girl, I would counter the entire effect. And also, if people see two separate lines of text, those are two separate effects. So countering Battle Cry won't also counter this ability because they're two separate effects. Because those two abilities are separate, that means with Mimeoplasm the Revered one, if I were to exile Scavenging Ooze out of my graveyard, then use the second ability to make Mimeoplasm a copy of Scavenging Ooze, to then activate Scavenging Ooze's ability to exile creatures out of my opponent's graveyard, those were cards that were exiled with it, right? No! You see, just because two abilities are separate doesn't mean that they can't be linked in any way. If an object has two abilities printed on it and one of those abilities refers to the other in some way, those two abilities are linked to each other. And that second ability can only refer to things that happen from the first ability. Let me elaborate. In the case with Mimeoplasm the Revered one, the exiled card can only be referred to exiled cards by this first ability. Even though Mimeoplasm was able to exile cards outside of that ability, those cards cannot be referred to because they were not specifically from that first ability. But sometimes with linked abilities, you're able to do more than what is expected with it. For example, with Phyrexian Ingester, you exile a single creature card, and it gains an additional buff according to that creature's power and toughness. But if you can double its enter the battlefield trigger and it can exile two creatures, what values do we go with? Well, we just go with all of them. Since they're linked abilities, they can refer to each card exiled it with the first ability. And if we need to determine the value of a variable, the sum of the answer is used. So we'd add the power of both exiled creatures and the toughness of both exiled creatures, and then that's the buff that this gets.